Hey dear ladies and gentlemen, I am Jim Rohn. Today I am here for you. I want to talk about something we all experience but often misunderstand: emotions. Let me tell you something simple but powerful. Emotions are signals, not commands. And the day you fully understand that is the day you begin to master your life. See, we all experience emotions: joy, fear, anger, sadness, excitement, frustration. And every one of them is real, every one of them valid. But just because something is real doesn't mean it should rule your life. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to obey it. Emotions are like the weather, ever-changing, unpredictable, but they don't decide whether or not you go to work, do they? Of course not. You learn to dress accordingly, prepare accordingly, but you still move forward. That's how you have to treat emotions. Let's take anger. You feel it rising. Maybe someone wronged you, said something they shouldn't have, crossed a line. That emotion is real. It's telling you something's off, that there's an injustice. That's the signal. But if you treat that emotion as a command, and you act without reflection, you might say something you regret, do something you can't undo, or damage a relationship that's worth more than your pride. So the key is this: feel the anger, listen to the message, but don't let it take the wheel. You're still the driver. Or how about fear? Fear is a useful emotion. It keeps us alive. It tells us when to slow down, when to think twice, when to avoid danger. But fear can also lie. It can whisper that you're not good enough, that you'll fail, that you should quit before you even begin. And if you treat that fear like a command instead of a signal, you'll stay stuck. You'll avoid opportunities, you'll never stretch, you'll never grow. You see, fear was meant to protect you, not imprison you. Think about sadness. It's a tough one. It can hit you out of nowhere. It can feel heavy, paralyzing even. It's a signal that you've lost something important, that something meaningful is missing, and you should feel that. Don't ignore it. Don't shove it down, but don't build a home in it either. Feel the loss, honor the pain, but remind yourself that the sadness came to teach you, not to define you. You are not your worst day. You are not your lowest moment. You are more than what you feel in a passing season. See, the reason so many people feel overwhelmed by life isn't because they're too emotional. It's because they haven't learned the difference between emotion and instruction. Your emotions will knock on the door. They'll demand your attention, but they don't get to make the decisions. That's your job. That's your responsibility. Maturity isn't about never feeling anything. It's about knowing what to do with what you feel. It's about letting the emotion pass through you, informing you, not controlling you. Now, I'm not saying you should ignore your emotions. That's just as dangerous as obeying them blindly. Suppressing what you feel builds pressure, and sooner or later, that pressure turns into damage. The goal isn't to silence the signal, it's to interpret it, to understand it, to ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Is there something I need to change, something I need to face, something I need to heal? Once you ask the right questions, emotions become powerful allies instead of relentless enemies. You've got to live with emotional intelligence. That means tuning in without caving in. That means recognizing that your feelings are part of your humanity, but they're not the whole story. You can feel afraid and still move forward. You can feel uncertain and still make a decision. You can feel broken and still take the next step. Emotional maturity is when you acknowledge the presence of a feeling without giving it the authority of a fact. So the next time a strong emotion comes, whether it's anger, fear, doubt, or even elation, take a moment. Step back, ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? Then decide with wisdom what you'll do next. That's how you take back your power. That's how you keep control of your direction, because the winds will always blow. But you, my friend, set the sail. There's a great danger in life that often goes unnoticed, not because it's invisible, but because it's internal. And that's the danger of emotional suppression. Too many people are taught, either by culture, upbringing, or bad experience, that emotions are something to hide, to push down, to pretend don't exist. Be strong. They say, hold it in. And while strength is a virtue, suppressing your emotions isn't strength. It's a slow, quiet erosion of your spirit, because what you bury doesn't disappear, it builds. Every time you silence your sadness, it settles into your soul. Every time you swallow your frustration without understanding it or releasing it, it gathers. And eventually, what you suppress begins to show up in ways you didn't expect: in anxiety, in bitterness, in burnout, in sudden outbursts you can't explain. It's like stuffing too much into a suitcase and then acting surprised when the zipper breaks. You can't keep cramming your feelings into a corner and expect peace. So the answer isn't suppression, it's expression, but not reckless expression, not explosion. We're talking about expression with wisdom, with discipline, with clarity. You see, the key to emotional health isn't denying what you feel. It's learning how to speak the language of your own heart. If something hurts you, say it. If something excites you, share it. If something's confusing, admit it. That's not weakness, that's alignment. That's the beginning of freedom. When you express what you feel, you reclaim control over it. You take it out of the shadows and put it into the light, where it can be seen, sorted, and healed. Now, some people worry that expressing their emotions will make them look fragile, or dramatic, or out of control. But here's the truth. Emotional expression done right doesn't make you unstable. It makes you trustworthy. The strongest people I know aren't the ones who never cry or get angry or feel fear. They're the ones who know what they're feeling, why they're feeling it, and what to do with it. They don't bottle things up until they explode. They let it out in real time with maturity and self-respect. Think about a pressure cooker. If it doesn't have a release valve, what happens? It blows. Same with people. You need a valve. You need a way to let the pressure out. Not just for your own sake, but for the sake of everyone around you. Because suppressed emotions don't just affect you. They affect how you treat others, how you talk to your family, how you show up at work, how you respond when life gets tough. Expression doesn't always have to be verbal. Sometimes you write it down, sometimes you go for a run, sometimes you pick up a guitar or a paintbrush, but you've got to let it out. You've got to make space for your emotions to move, because movement is life. And when your emotions have no space to move, they start to decay. Now, I'm not saying you should walk around pouring your heart out to everyone you meet. There's wisdom in knowing how to express and who to express to. Not everyone deserves access to your innermost thoughts, but someone should. Maybe it's a friend, a coach, a therapist, or even a blank journal. But your soul needs a witness. You weren't designed to carry it all alone. And sometimes expression leads to revelation. Sometimes when you speak it or write it or release it, you finally understand it. You realize the anger was really hurt, the fear was really love, the sadness was really longing. You learn about yourself through your own voice, and in that clarity, growth begins, healing begins. Suppressing emotion is like putting a lid on a boiling pot. It might stay quiet for a little while, but the heat is still rising underneath. Expressing emotion is like turning down the flame and opening the lid. It's active, it's intentional, and it's healing. It doesn't mean you get to say anything, anytime, anyhow. But it does mean you find a healthy, responsible, honest way to let the feelings out before they turn into something destructive. So my encouragement is this: don't pretend to be okay when you're not. Don't wear a mask that hides your soul. Life is too short to be fake and too precious to be numb. Feel it, face it, express it. That's how you stay human. That's how you stay whole. And that's how you build an inner world strong enough to handle an ever-changing outer one. One of the greatest acts of strength a person can perform is to be honest, not just with the world, but with themselves. I'm not talking about brutal honesty that wounds or exposes. I'm talking about the quiet, steady kind of honesty that allows you to look in the mirror and say, "This is where I really am." That kind of honesty is rare, and because it's rare, so is the clarity that comes with it. You see, most people live behind a fog of distraction, of denial, of pretending things are better than they are, or sometimes worse than they are. They go through life reacting instead of reflecting. But clarity doesn't come from noise. It doesn't come from rushing around. It comes from slowing down long enough to tell yourself the truth. The truth might be that you're not as happy as you look in those pictures. The truth might be that you're carrying disappointment you never processed. The truth might be that you're afraid of failing, so you don't even start. Whatever it is, that truth doesn't make you weak. It makes you clear. It gives you a place to begin. You can't fix what you won't face, and you can't grow past what you won't admit. Being emotionally honest doesn't mean you wallow in what's wrong. It means you identify what's real. That's the start of power. That's when you stop pretending to be okay just to keep the peace. That's when you stop smiling on the outside while falling apart inside. Because the longer you fake it, the longer you delay the change. There's something about speaking the truth, even just to yourself, that unlocks your next step. Maybe you've been stuck in a rut and you can't figure out why. Dig a little deeper. What are you pretending not to feel? What are you trying to avoid by staying busy or distracted? Because under that emotion, under the discomfort, is usually the direction, and you won't find it if you're lying to yourself. I know people who are deeply talented, but they can't seem to move forward because they're still hiding from old pain. They say, "I'm fine," but they're not, and because they won't admit it, they can't process it. And because they can't process it, they stay confused, they stay stuck. Clarity isn't about having all the answers. It's about being honest about where you're starting. That kind of honesty takes courage. It takes discipline, it takes maturity. It's easier to blame someone else. It's easier to point the finger and say, "They hurt me, they held me back, or they don't understand." But the real question is, what are you doing with what you feel? Are you owning it? Are you learning from it? Or are you hiding from it behind clever excuses? When you practice emotional honesty, you begin to untangle the knots. You stop confusing anxiety with laziness or sadness with weakness. You stop telling yourself, "I just need to be more motivated," when what you really need is rest or healing or to let go of something that's not serving you anymore. The clearer you become about your own emotions, the clearer you become about your needs, your boundaries, your next move. And this honesty, it's not a one-time event, it's a daily practice, because new challenges will always bring new emotions. You'll be tempted again to ignore, to pretend, to avoid. But every time you choose honesty, you gain a little more clarity. And with clarity comes confidence, not arrogance, but a quiet confidence that says, "I know where I am, I know what I feel, and I know what I need to do next." Emotional honesty also deepens your relationship. When you show up as your real self, not your polished self, people can connect with you, they can trust you, they can respect you, because honesty invites honesty. It creates space for depth, not just surface-level conversations. It's a humbling thing to admit your fear, to say, "I don't have it all figured out." But that humility is where the real strength is, because from that place, you can grow, you can ask for help, you can make changes that matter. So if you feel stuck or cloudy or overwhelmed, start with this simple but powerful question. What's the truth I haven't said out loud yet? Speak it, write it, sit with it, and don't rush to fix it. Just feel it. Because that feeling is your starting point. That truth is your compass. Emotional honesty won't always feel good in the moment, but it will always lead you somewhere better. Because once you tell yourself the truth, you can finally live in it. And when you live in the truth, you're no longer lost. You're just on the way. There's a reason we have emotions. They weren't put in us by accident. Emotions are part of the human design. They give life color. They make us laugh, cry, connect, and feel alive. But the real secret, the real wisdom, is learning how to use your emotions without letting them use you. Too often, people live at the mercy of how they feel. They wake up tired, so they give up on the day. They feel rejected, so they withdraw from opportunity. They feel irritated, so they lash out. They're driven by emotion like a leaf in the wind, tossed around by whatever shows up that day. But life doesn't work well when you let emotions take the driver's seat. Emotions were never meant to steer. They're meant to signal, to inform, to serve, not to rule. Let's make that clear. Your emotions are powerful tools. When used well, they can give you insight, energy, empathy, motivation. But when you let them run wild, when you let them control your words, your actions, your decisions, they become tyrants. You go from living a life you've designed to living a life that reacts to everything that moves. Think about fire. Fire can warm your home or burn it down. It depends on whether you control it or not. Emotions are no different. Anger, when mastered, can become the fuel for justice. Sadness, when embraced, can open the door to healing. Even fear, when understood, can keep you aware, sharp, and alert. But lose control of those same emotions, and they'll wreck your relationships, cloud your judgment, and shrink your life. So the lesson is not to reject your emotions, not to push them away. The lesson is to own them, acknowledge them, understand what they're trying to tell you. But then you decide what to do next. That's emotional discipline. That's maturity. That's where the power is. It's easy to let emotions take over. You get offended and you want to fire back. You get disappointed and you want to quit. You feel nervous, so you avoid the challenge. But emotions are like wild horses. They'll run the wrong way unless you train them. You don't get to choose how you feel all the time, but you do get to choose what you do with those feelings. You've got to build the habit of pausing. Before you react, before you speak, before you walk away, pause. Ask yourself, is this emotion helping me or hurting me right now? Is this how I want to respond, or is this just how I feel like responding? That small moment of reflection can change everything. That's where you move from being controlled to being in control. And here's the beauty. Once you start using your emotions instead of being used by them, you become incredibly effective. You use your excitement to energize your work. You use your empathy to deepen your relationships. You use your frustration as a signal that something needs fixing, not something to explode over. You become intentional, directed, purposeful. Let's not pretend this is easy. It takes practice. It takes awareness. And most of all, it takes responsibility. You've got to own your part, even when someone else triggers you, even when life throws curveballs. You can't always control the world, but you can learn to lead yourself. And when you lead yourself, people notice, they trust you more, they lean on you. Why? Because you're not ruled by the mood of the moment. You have stability, you're not reactive. You're responsive, and in a world full of chaos, that's rare. That's valuable. Now, don't mistake control for suppression. This isn't about pretending you don't feel something. It's about feeling it fully, but responding wisely. You let the emotion pass through you, not take over you. That's the balance. That's emotional strength. The more you practice this, the stronger you get. You learn to ride the waves instead of being tossed by them. You learn to stay grounded when others are losing their heads. And over time, your emotions become your allies. They guide you, fuel you, teach you. But they don't dominate you. So the goal isn't to shut down your emotions. It's to master them, to channel them, to use them as tools to build your life, not traps that sabotage it. You're not a slave to how you feel. You're the architect of your actions. And when you remember that, you don't just survive the emotional storms of life. You navigate them with clarity, strength, and grace. There's something deep within every person, a quiet, natural light that doesn't need to be earned or bought or proven. It's joy, not the surface-level, momentary thrill that comes from getting a like on your post or a compliment from a stranger. Not the temporary rush of buying something new. No, I'm talking about something much richer. The kind of joy that comes from simply being alive, being connected, being present. That kind of joy is your birthright. You came into this world with it. You see it in a child who laughs for no reason. You see it in someone dancing to music only they can hear. You see it in the smile of someone doing what they love. That's the joy I'm talking about. The kind that doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. The kind that isn't about achievement, but alignment. But here's the challenge. Life doesn't always protect that joy for you. In fact, most of the world is designed to distract you from it. Expectations, obligations, comparisons. Those things sneak in and start building walls around your joy. Suddenly, you find yourself saying, "I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when I lose the weight, when they finally appreciate me." And in chasing those moving targets, you miss the joy that was already within your reach. The truth is, you've got to protect your joy, not with force, but with focus. Not with defensiveness, but with discipline, because if you're not careful, other people will drain it. They'll tell you you're not enough, that your dreams are silly, that your happiness is naive. And if you're not grounded in the truth of who you are, you'll start believing them. You'll trade your joy for approval. You'll hand over your peace in exchange for validation. And before you know it, you're living someone else's life, trying to meet their standards while your soul goes quiet. You have to be fierce about what feeds you and what drains you, who you let close, what you consume, what you believe. Joy doesn't grow in clutter. It grows in clarity, and clarity comes when you pause long enough to ask yourself, what brings me life? What makes me feel alive, present, grateful? That's your compass. That's your protection. Sometimes that means saying no, even when it's hard. Sometimes that means walking away from things that look good but don't feel right. Sometimes it means creating space to breathe, to reflect, to play, because joy needs room. It doesn't survive in a schedule that never stops or a mind that never rests. And listen, protecting your joy doesn't mean you ignore pain. It doesn't mean you walk around pretending everything's fine when it's not. Real joy isn't blind. It sees the world as it is, but chooses hope anyway. It doesn't need perfection. It just needs presence. You can feel sorrow and still access joy. You can face difficulty and still carry peace, because joy isn't the absence of challenge. It's the presence of meaning. You protect your joy by aligning with what matters most, by doing work that reflects your values, by spending time with people who see you, not just use you, by slowing down enough to enjoy a sunrise, a song, a good conversation. These aren't small things, they're sacred. They build a life that feels good from the inside out. So be intentional, be protective, because the world will always offer you 1,000 reasons to be bitter, to be anxious, to be numb, and you don't need to accept all of them. You can say, "No, thank you. My joy is too important. My peace is too valuable. My spirit is not for sale." Joy isn't selfish, it's foundational. It fuels your energy, it colors your relationships, it shapes your decisions. A joyful person sees possibility where others see problems. A joyful person has the strength to keep going, not because life is easy, but because their heart is full. So reclaim it, guard it, cultivate it like a garden. And don't wait for permission. You don't need everything to be perfect before you feel good. Joy isn't a reward, it's a resource, and it's already in you. Because when you remember that joy is your birthright, you stop chasing it in all the wrong places. You return home to yourself, and when you protect that space fiercely daily, you don't just survive this life, you learn how to truly live it. There's a common misunderstanding people carry, and it holds them back more than they realize. They think emotional strength, emotional maturity, is something you're either born with or you're not. As if some people just naturally have peace, patience, wisdom, and the rest of us have to struggle our way through frustration and regret. But that idea is false. Emotional growth isn't some rare gift handed out at birth. It's a skill, a learnable, buildable, practical skill, like writing, speaking, or cooking. And like any skill, it takes intention, repetition, and commitment. You can grow emotionally. You can become more patient, more centered, more resilient. You can learn how to regulate your emotions, how to communicate them, how to sit with discomfort without being consumed by it. But none of that happens by accident. Just like going to the gym doesn't make you fit overnight, emotional growth takes time, effort, and practice. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can stop feeling stuck and start building strength. We live in a world that emphasizes outer success, degrees, titles, wealth. But real power comes from inner mastery. What good is achieving everything on the outside if your inner world is chaotic? If the smallest setback ruins your day? If someone else's opinion throws off your confidence, that's not strength. That's instability in disguise. Emotional growth is what gives you the foundation. It's what lets you move through life with steadiness, even when things are shaky. The problem is, most people don't treat it like a skill. They wait. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for life to calm down. They wait until they just know how to handle things better. But skills don't grow through waiting. They grow through doing. You don't become emotionally strong by avoiding hard conversations. You grow by having them with courage and grace. You don't become more self-aware by scrolling through distractions. You grow by sitting in silence, reflecting, asking yourself the hard questions. And you don't have to be perfect to begin. That's the beauty of skill development. You can be a complete beginner and still move forward. You can stumble and still improve. In fact, emotional growth often looks messy at first. You speak up when you're used to staying silent and your voice shakes. You say no when you're used to people pleasing and you feel guilty. You pause before reacting and it feels unfamiliar. That discomfort, it's part of the process. It means you're training new muscles, and over time it gets easier. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. The emotionally mature person isn't someone who never feels upset. There's someone who can feel the upset, recognize it, understand it, and choose how to respond rather than just react. That ability, that gap between stimulus and response, that skill, that's what emotional growth produces. And anyone can learn it. It doesn't matter how reactive you've been in the past, how sensitive, how guarded. You can grow, you can evolve, but you've got to treat it like a discipline. That means showing up, practicing mindfulness, owning your part in your relationships, asking for feedback even when it stings, apologizing with humility, forgiving not just once, but over and over again when it's called for. These aren't traits you're born with. They're choices you make, and the more you make them, the more natural they become. One of the biggest signs of emotional growth is responsibility. When you stop blaming others for how you feel and start managing your own responses, that's growth. When you stop looking for someone else to fix your problems and start owning your behavior, that's growth, and it's not always glamorous. It's not always loud, but it is always powerful. The truth is, emotional growth doesn't make life easier. It makes you better equipped, so when life throws storms, and it will, you don't collapse, you bend, you adapt, you learn, you come back stronger because you've built something inside that no one can take away. So, don't wait to feel ready. Start where you are. Practice today. Reflect tonight. Course correct tomorrow. Emotional strength isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed to your own evolution. And the more you grow, the more you realize that nothing on the outside can replace the peace, the confidence, the wisdom that comes from knowing you've done the work. Because at the end of the day, emotional growth is not a mystery. It's a skill, and it's yours to develop. One step, one choice, one moment at a time. To feel is to be human. It's one of the simplest truths there is. The joy, the sorrow, the anger, the gratitude, all of it is part of the package. Your emotions are not a flaw in the design. They're not signs of weakness or failure. They're proof that you're alive, that you care, that you're present in the world. But somewhere along the line, many people learn to treat emotion like a problem, like something that needs to be hidden or hardened against, and the risk in doing that is great. Because when you shut down your emotions to protect yourself, you also shut down your hope. See, emotions are not the enemy of strength. They're the foundation of connection, empathy, and growth. The goal isn't to stop feeling. The goal is to feel without being destroyed, to let your emotions shape you, not shatter you, and most importantly, to never let them steal your sense of hope. Because hope, that belief that better is possible, is a force that fuels your future. It keeps you moving when everything in you wants to give up. And if you let pain harden you, if you let disappointment close your heart, you risk losing the very thing that keeps you climbing. So how do you do it? How do you feel deeply and still stay strong? How do you hurt without giving up? You remember that your emotions are part of the journey, not the end of the road. Anger, sadness, fear, those aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're signs that something matters to you. Let that guide you. Let your sadness remind you of what you value. Let your frustration point you to what needs fixing. Let your fear teach you where growth is asking for your attention. But don't let any of those emotions make you cynical. Don't let them close your eyes to beauty, your ears to laughter, or your heart to possibility. Some people get hurt and decide it's easier not to care. They turn cold, they shut others out, they play it safe, but in trying not to feel the lows, they also miss the highs, they miss the warmth of connection, the sweetness of a good moment, the pride of progress. That's not strength. It's survival, and there's a big difference. Strength is when you feel everything and still move forward, when you carry your scars not as shame, but as proof that you're still standing. Let your emotions make you more human. Let them deepen you. Let them teach you compassion for others, but never let them rob you of your light. Your hope is too important, too powerful, too necessary, because hope is what pulls you through. Hope is what says, even though I'm tired, I'll try again tomorrow. Hope is what says, even though I've been hurt, I still believe in kindness. And hope is what reminds you that pain is not permanent, that joy is always possible again. If you feel deeply, you're not broken, you're aware, you're awake, and that's a gift in a world that often wants us to numb out. But don't let your depth turn to despair. Feed your hope like a fire. Surround yourself with people who lift your spirits, not just your status. Spend time doing things that restore your energy, not just drain your time, and talk to yourself like someone worth loving. Because you are. Life will bruise you, it'll disappoint you, it'll test you in ways you didn't ask for. But that doesn't mean you have to lose your softness. It doesn't mean you have to grow bitter or give in. Let your emotions make you wiser, but not hopeless. Let them make you softer, but not weak. And let them make you more open to life, not less. Because the people who make the biggest difference in the world aren't the ones who never feel pain. They're the ones who feel it, and still choose to show up with courage, with heart, with belief. So cry when you need to. Shout when it's honest. Sit in the sadness when it comes, but always, always hold on to hope. Your emotions are part of your humanity. Let them live, let them move, let them speak, but never let them convince you to stop hoping. That's your job, that's your power, and that's what keeps the light on when everything else feels dark. I hope this wordings change your life. Must subscribe, like, share, and hit the bell icon. So thank you for watching.